It's Ms. Strasser here with your social studies notes for today. We are going to be finishing our last three Spanish explorers. So I do need you to make sure that you have your notes out. Today we're going to talk about the final three that we have not talked about yet. So this first guy, you need to find him. His name is Amerigo Vespucci. Again, another odd-looking name. I think his face is super weird. But all that to be said, he still was an explorer. So, in the box of who did he sail for? He sailed for Spain in 1499, basically 1500, right around the time that a lot of these Spanish explorers sailed. It was in the 1500 range. And he wanted glory, okay? He wanted to prove that Christopher Columbus found what he did. He wanted to almost get some credit to his name for like what he was able to without, like he wanted to make sure that Christopher Columbus's findings were actually true. So he needed to make sure that he did what he said he was doing. So that is the first dude. His actual findings that he said he did was he explored South America. He found the Caribbean. He found some of those Caribbean islands that are down by South America. And he was the first person to realize that the New World was not Asia. So if you've figured out, most of these explorers were looking for Asia, a route to Asia, but none of them ever found it. That's because they didn't realize where they were. The New World that all of these explorers were going to, that was North America, not Asia. And this guy is the one to actually discover it. He found the Amazon River, and the coolest part that I think you'll understand here in a second when we get to his name, he named America after him. So Amerigo, that's where America comes from. So this guy was kind of the person to get credit for naming America what it is. Eventually, we became, the country, the United States of America. That happened, years later, which we will talk about in our class. But where America comes from is this lovely Spanish explorer named Amerigo. So these are kind of his important findings. These four are really important, so I do want you to make sure you have those written. Feel free to pause at any time while I continue to move forward on to the next guy. So this is kind of a route that he took to get to some of this stuff. So he was able to go to Spain. He found some of these islands down here. He proved kind of where Columbus went, Cuba and those areas. And he was able to find the Americas. Okay, he was able to name them after himself. The next dude is Ponce de Leon, which is another name from the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Again, some of you will understand here in just a second when I talk about it. But Juan Ponce de Leon is another name from the movies. It's based around some treasure and something called the Fountain of Youth. So he was a conquistador for Spain in 1513, the early 1500s. Again, a conquistador, remember, that's a guy that conquers land. So it's not necessarily an explorer. He's more of a conqueror, someone that takes over. He wanted glory because he wanted to find the Fountain of Youth. So his goal was to find the Fountain of Youth and prove that it was real. There is a Pirates of the Caribbean movie that is purely based on Jack Sparrow finding the Fountain of Youth. And that's kind of where that name comes from, because this name is in the movies. It's the guy that they're kind of trying to prove as well that he actually found it. So if you ever are interested in watching any of those, that's one of them. That's what they do, is they find the Fountain of Youth. And there's mermaids and all kinds of crazy stuff. But anyway, that's off topic. Some things he actually did. So he found Haiti and the Dominican Republic and created settlements there. Whenever somebody says that they built or created settlements somewhere, it means that they set up shop. That's kind of how I would describe it. They stayed put. They built almost like a city, a town, and kind of created some sort of land there. He actually was on Columbus's second expedition to look for some of these things. He conquered Puerto Rico, claimed it for Spain. Again, Spain gained a ton of land during this time because they had so many explorers and conquerors going out into the world. and conquering land. And because of that, Spanish land grew a bunch because they were just taken over everywhere. He kind of enslaved a group of people kind of in the process of conquering land. He kind of crushed an entire group of people, and he got to be the person that names Florida for what it is. So the word Florida, the name Florida, the state that we have, is from this guy. So I have no idea why he named it that, but he's the guy that gets credit for that. So again, feel free to pause at any point. I know I'm talking kind of quickly, but it's mostly because my throat hurts, so I'm trying to be done with the talking. Here is kind of a map of his explorations. So you can see he's leaving Spain here, and he's kind of conquering all of these southern islands that are below North America. Haiti, the Dominican Republic, lots of different super hot islands down there. And all of that was claimed for Spain. So all of this land is now considered part of Spain. And the last person that we're going to talk about today is Balboa. Vasco Nunez de Balboa. Again, another conquistador for Spain in the early 1500s. I think the biggest takeaway that you need to understand as we wrap up explorers is the Spanish were the most successful. Okay, they were the ones that had people that actually did stuff. He wanted to find gold, so his main goal was treasure. He didn't necessarily care about land or anything, but he wanted to find gold. He claimed the entire Pacific Ocean for Spain, which, if you think about it, is kind of funny. He's basically claiming the portion of the ocean and any land that touches it for Spain, which is weird because you can't claim an entire body of water, which leads down to this point. He was the first European to actually see how large and vast the ocean was from the New World that they were trying to discover. So he's trying to claim this ocean, but then he realizes, okay, well, this is an enormous amount of water. I can't just claim this because the Pacific Ocean is huge between Spain and the New World. He also crossed what is called the Isthmus of Panama. I'll show you on a map here in a second. But he was killed for treason. If you don't know what treason is, it's somebody that kind of goes against the rules of a king or a leader. And so he was killed for that. Again, this guy does all of these things, but then has an unfortunate ending, whether that's because he did something he wasn't supposed to do or he stole or whatever, I don't know. But the Isthmus of Panama, if you've ever heard of Panama before, it's like in the South America range. So again, that yellow is kind of some of his voyages. But you can see he was a huge sailor. He sailed everywhere. And the reason I'm saying this is because he was the guy to realize how big the ocean was. And the only way to do that is if you're actually covering it, if you're actually going out onto the ocean as much as he was, and he did. And so he realized how large the ocean was and how far apart all of these continents were and brought that information back, but was eventually killed for treason. So these are the three final people that we're going to talk about today. Tomorrow when I return, I will get you started on your project, which is great because you'll get to pick a couple of your favorites from the Vikings, the French, the Spanish, and the English explorers. You'll get to pick some of your favorites, do a presentation on them, and kind of pin them against each other and see who would win. So thank you so much. Make sure you get everything down. Feel free to pause or rewind at any point. And when you're finished, you can go ahead and move on to the next thing. Good job.